Just to give you guys a background, Marsha Brogan is an independent insurance agent with more than 40 years of experience. Her mission is to provide the best insurance solutions for your childcare. Marsha is the premier insurance agent for childcare whose passion is to help childcare owners flourish with proper business information through education and empowerment. She is the owner of Marsha C. Brogan Agency, LLC, a New York State and New York City certified woman business enterprise, past president of the Kenmore Business Association, and past president of the Buffalo Niagara chapter of the National Association of Women Business Owners. Marsha is the recipient of 7 awards, including the 2019 Elite Women in Insurance, 2018 NAWBO Member of the Year, 2017 Women of Influence Award from Business First, 2016 Women in Leadership Award from the New York State Women INC, the 2013 Excellence in Leadership Award from the State Council of Early Care and Learning Council. Marshall is also a board member of Our Lady of Victory Charities, Supportive Services, and the incoming president for the Buffalo Niagara chapter of the National Alliance of Mental Health. It is with such pleasure and honor that I welcome you guys and say, if anyone can just clap in the chat for Marsha C. Brogan. It is a pleasure to have you this evening, Marsha.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for giving up an hour of their evening tonight to learn about your business and how to be successful at it. I know you've had a trying day. It's been long and hard when you work in the childcare, and business is probably not on your top list, but the fact that you're here is great. And I applaud you for taking the time to do it. So I'm going to move along. And we're going to talk about a lot today. If you have any questions, put them in your chat. And what I've asked the panelists to help me do is just to let me know what they are while we're doing it so that we don't forget about them and keep it relevant. So today we're going to be talking about problem solving for your in-home childcare business. So small businesses are increasing, the costs are increasing tremendously with small business owners. And it's very important that you have to protect yourself and your business. All it takes is one lawsuit and you're in a whirlwind of anxiety that could last for months or years. We're dealing with children and we're affecting their lives. So it's important that we protect ourselves financially. And also lawsuits can be brought up until a child is 18. So it's very important you keep your records. And I know that's a lot of records. So you can put them on, you can scan them in, but you really need to have them in the event of a lawsuit. Our learning objectives today is we're going to talk about a business structure, understanding your basic coverages of liability, the general liability versus a home policy endorsement, business property, auto, and abuse. So first of all, are you a DBA or a corporation? Which is the best one for you? If you do a DBA, you can usually file it online yourself and create your own DBA. It's inexpensive, but in the event of a lawsuit, you are personally responsible. So if you get sued, they can go after your personal assets. They can go after your home. They can go after your investments. They can go after your wages, and they can also garnish your wages. So it's important to know that when you're dealing with the DBA, that you have sufficient insurance coverage to protect yourself. Now, a corporation like a limited liability corporation, which I am, or other types of corporation, they can only sue you for what's in the corporation. So if it's just your daycare, don't put anything else with the daycare. Don't put any properties, don't put anything else, just keep the daycare by itself. So in the event of a lawsuit, they'll only take the assets of that daycare. Now for that one, you usually have to hire an attorney. You can do it online, but it's pretty complicated. It usually costs for about $1,500. The best thing to do is check with your CPA or your tax accountant and have them advise you on that. Any questions on that so far? Okay. The liability of a childcare business protects you, which is you as the employer and your employee, in case of accidents or lawsuits. For example, a child rolls off the table, falls off of a slide, gets their fingers caught in a door. I've had that happen where the tips of a child's fingers are caught in a door and are cut off. That's happened a couple times. Once, if you're found negligent, they call the attorney and then the snowball begins. Most child care providers feel that they know their families. Oh, and this one wouldn't sue. I know this wouldn't happen to me. Trust me, the ones you think will never sue are the ones that will, because they hear the ads on TV all the time. Did this happen to you? Did that happen to you? Do you think wasn't your settlement high enough? So it's really important that if something were to happen, you reach out and you report it to the insurance carrier. The general liability section also provides you with the litigation fees. So if you were to be brought up into a lawsuit, the company would defend you, which, if you know, attorney's fees, they go for about $400 an hour. It adds up pretty quick. You are a professional. This is your business. You have to think and protect yourself as one. The general liability portion. For in-home and group, it's based on the licensed amount, not on how many you have in your daycare, but the licensed amount. So a lot of daycares, when they start up, they'll go, if I'm going to go through this, I'm just going to sign up for 16. I'm going to get inspected for 16, but you only have 6 or 8, and that's pretty much what you want. Well, you're paying for the 16 versus paying for the 8. So it's really important that you figure out what you want to do and how many children you want and get the license for that amount. It's an Erie County. I met with the licensing department, and it's easy, they said, for you to go from 8 to 16. So you might as well go with the lower amount and pay less premium, so you can have more premium in your pocket so that you can grow and develop your business. Because you can be insurance rich, but everything else poor. And if you can't afford your insurance, then that's like a moot point, and you're really setting yourself up. So it's usually, like, I'm talking Buffalo, Erie County, it varies all over the state. But for us, it's usually around $595 a year for 8 children, just for the liability portion, which I'll explain. And 12 go about $1,200 and up. Limited number of companies for 12 and 16, because there's more chance for things to happen, and there's more claims. Now, children are excluded in the general liability. So if a child gets hurt and they want to sue you, children are excluded. So that's why you have to have a student accident medical policy. I'm going pretty fast. Am I talking too fast for everybody? Nope. Okay. So now we're going to talk about slips and falls. So lawsuits happen for slips and falls, and that's what your general liability portion covers. It covers for accidents and incidents that happen. So it's the people that you least expect that would sue. Like, I've had lawsuits where they were grandparents. They slipped and fell on the slippery sidewalk, or something happened. They twisted their ankle and they say, oh no, I won't sue. But a month later, sure enough, we do get a lawsuit. So all accidents should be filed. You should have an accident report. You should notify the insurance company and put them on notice. Might not, you could say, I'm not sure if anything will come about it, but I do want to put you on notice, because if you don't put them on notice and a big lawsuit comes in, the company could say, you didn't give us ample notice. All documents need to be forwarded from the attorney to our office. So if you get suit papers, they need to go right to the insurance agent's office. Don't discuss the claim with anybody. Don't talk about it with coworkers. Don't talk about it with the neighbors. Don't talk about it on social media. It just stays between you, the insurance company, and the adjuster. The insurance company will decide how to settle the claims. So all your claims will come from the insurance company versus out of your pocket. They're fighting for you, and they will decide how to settle and when to settle. Now, this is the general liability section of a policy. You can see, I don't know if you can see it, or if can you see the pointer over here? Can you see this where I'm pointing 3 million? Okay, so this is 1 million occurrence, 3 million aggregate. In Erie County, we have to match. This is what the state requires if you have a contract with them. So it's 1 million per occurrence. So you can have one, let's just say there's a fire and people are injured. They're going to pay out 1 million in that occurrence. They're going to pay out 3 million aggregate for the year. But so that's why you need to have as high of limits as possible, because this is for that whole claim. You'll also see $100,000 rented to you. So let's say you are a tenant And you have to have some coverage for the landlord. That would be the $100,000. The medical payments, which is 5, would be for the grandmother that slipped and fell. And she's not literally going to sue you, but you want to pay for her x-rays or anything. So this is the part, if you don't have enough insurance and a lawsuit is brought forth, they will then go after your personal assets. So that's why it's really important to make sure that your general liability up here is covered for 1 million, 3 million. That's really what you should be going for. Because if you think about it, just to talk to an attorney, it's $400 an hour. So you talk to the attorney for 10 hours, that's 4,000 right there. That's not even counting all the litigation and the settlement. This $1 million can be eaten up pretty quickly if it's more than one person. Questions? Any questions? No questions? Okay, so the student accident, this is a separate policy. This covers the children should they be injured. So the child that got their fingers cut in the door, or maybe a child slipped and fell and cut themselves, they have to go into the ER and get stitches, and the parents have a deductible on their medical plan. This student accident will pay. You can either choose it from the very first dollar or in excess over the parents' deductible. There's not much premium difference. I usually tell my clients to get from the very first dollar, so that this way an accident happens, they give you the bill within 2 weeks is paid. That eliminates chances of a lawsuit. The parents see, oh my gosh, they really care about me, they care about the children, they want to make sure that I'm made whole. So student accident is a very important coverage. It's based on a head count, and it's usually a dollar rate, like maybe $4.11 per head. The minimum premium is $350. So if you only have 8 children, you end up paying the minimum premium. But all it takes is one claim, and it'll be well worth it. That is, like I said, a separate policy that you have to get. So now we're going to talk about the professional liability. Professional liability is usually a separate limit on the insurance policy. It'll say professional. So this comes into play if a parent puts in a claim, and it's all on how it's worded. The child fell off the table. The teacher was negligent in her duties, and therefore my child fell and got injured. That's professional. The lawsuit would then go under the professional liability limit. And right here, you'll see, this is how it says: daycare organization, professional liability, and vicarious liability coverage form. This one is 2 million, 4 million, 2 million per person per incident, and 4 million aggregate. Now, vicarious liability, you'll see it over here, vicarious liability. That means you're held legally for somebody else's wrongdoing. So if you're an employee, let's just say the child spills something and the teacher mops it up and they don't put a sign, and then a parent comes along and slips and falls. Well, you didn't do it, but your employee did it. So because of that vicarious liability, you could be sued. Professional liability, here's other examples. If a child trips and falls because you didn't put them in the seat properly. If a child falls off of a changing table. If parents said that you didn't teach them according to the curriculum, you said that you would be teaching certain things in the curriculum, and at the end of the year, they said, well, my child didn't learn what you said that they were going to learn. They could sue you for professional liability. That would come under the professional liability section of the policy. So here's other examples to compare the two. So general liability would be physical in nature. Somebody falls and gets injured. It causes bodily injury, property damage, or personal injury. The professional would be negligence, bad advice, or failed performance. Those are the ones that would be affecting a teacher and a childcare provider. Abuse. This is another big one. As you know from everything that's happened, companies are really getting much more stringent on that because of the amount of lawsuits that were paid out between the Catholic Church, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, all of that. They're really, really cracking down on it. So if a claim is brought forth, the company will respond. All documents, you need to document all suspicions in the event that a parent submits a claim. The state and the county mandate that you complete all your records. So in New York State, we're pretty intent on making sure that everything is covered. Another state, they might be a little lax, but New York State is pretty good. So if something were to happen, I would suggest everybody at least try to find somebody that's a public relations person, because in the event that something happens, you want to get a hold of your public relations persons to say, how do I handle this? Social media is wild. I had a provider that the parent said that the teacher did something, and she went on social media and posted it. And you know, parents, they just need a bandwagon. They don't even know all the facts, but they jumped on it. I was coming home from a meeting from the Early Care and Learning Council in Albany, got the call. I was maybe an hour outside of Buffalo. By the time I got there, the news was there. Everybody was standing outside trying to videotape, trying to talk to people. Do not talk to anybody. I advise them to get their board together and let's talk about it. No claim was really put forth for about a month. And then the parent put forth the claim and it was settled, and the company responded and took care of the claim and represented the daycare. Now, remember, a lawsuit can be brought up until the child ages out at 18. So that's a lot of time. So you have to make sure you keep those records. If you don't keep those records, you're still responsible. So if you can't prove you had insurance and go back to that company, they're going to come after you to be personally responsible. So please make sure you keep your insurance deck sheets and the coverages. Here's an example of a sexual abuse endorsement. So here, this is $1 million each occurrence and $1 million aggregate. The max they're going to pay out is $1 million. They are now, many companies are dropping it down to 100,000, 300,000, because the exposure, they need to protect themselves from this exposure so that they can make these rates still affordable. Childcare rates are increasing like everything else. Anybody have any questions so far? Am I talking too fast?
No, you're fine, Marcia. Okay. If anyone has questions, you can post it in the Q&A and we'll answer them as they come in.
Okay, so what does a company look at when they do the quoting? How can you lower your rates and claims? This is the next section. So what's included in rating? So headcount, as I mentioned, they go on the actual licensed amount. 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. is allowed. The moment you do till 9, 10 o'clock at night, overnights, they want to know who's with the child, where's the child sleeping, who has access to the child, because they're opening themselves up for any type of abuse. And during the day, it's not an issue, but when you start doing overnights, and then they say, well, who else? You're already working a 12-hour shift. So does that mean you're working with their child 24 hours? That's another question that they have. So make sure if you do longer hours, that you have documentation on who's with the children, how they're protected, where they sleep, and on all that information. More opportunities for potential claim are pets, pools, fences, playground, and trampolines. No trampolines. Make sure that the playground, I have a playground inspection form that you can get that I'm going to be made available to everybody. People do have pets, they need to be kept separately. Dogs, no, like no pit bulls, no Dobermans. I don't care where they are, they can't be anywhere. Those, if you get one bite, that you're talking about at least $1 million lawsuit. The daycares must be licensed. Insurance companies will only deal with licensed daycares. Some daycares, if they have like a couple children, they don't need to be licensed, but in order to get insurance, you have to be licensed. And they look at the credit score. That all goes into how they rate the period, because the insurance companies have different tiers. So depending on, so they're going to look at, okay, what are your hours? Do you have any staff? Do you have a playground? All that goes into a tier, and then they look to see what the exposures are, and that's how they come up with the rate. Payment history is huge, and I know it's very challenging for in-home providers because they wait for the check from the county, from the parents. But continuous late payments is a red flag for your daycare. Every time there's a late payment, the insurance company has to touch it. They have to send out a notice that the payment is late. Then they have to send out a cancellation notice. Then they have to send out a reinstatement if you make a late notice. If your payment is late and it cancels, the company does not have to reinstate you. That means that company is done with you and you have to find a new carrier. Most of the time, you're with the lowest premium carrier. So if that company is done, you have to go to the next one. And that rate will be higher than probably what you're paying now because they look at the payment history. So while it's really hard, it's very important that you maybe put them on EFT so it automatically comes out. I have a client now, she was in the hospital, she didn't make her payment, but she canceled a couple months ago and I got her policy reinstated. The company said, we'll only write it if she pays it in full. So now she doesn't even have a choice. She can't even go on EFT or monthly installments automatically. So that's really important to make sure that your payments are done, not by the cancellation date. If the policy, if you get a bill and it says it's due March 1st, the company has to have it in their hands by March 1st, not that you mail it out on March 1st. Because if it's not, they don't have it in their hands on March 1st, it then produces a cancellation notice. Here are things that you look at for a clue report. So they look at, you can see 35% is payment history. 30% is what they owe on other credit lines. 10% is your credit mix. Your credit history is 15% and new credit is 10%. But the biggest chunk is your payment history. And they go that on all your payments. So whether it's your car payment, whether it's your mortgage payment, whatever payment you have, your credit card, you know, you take out a Kohl's credit card and you're always late on that hits your credit and it shows that your payment history is affected. So it's really important for all your charges and all your credits to make it on a timely basis. Now, if you have a homeowner, you must, if you have an in-home daycare, you have to notify your homeowner's company that you have a daycare. A lot of homeowners policies exclude daycares, and just because you don't notify them doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to let it slide. Ignorance does not cover this. If there's a claim and they find out you had a daycare, they could deny coverage. And that's not the time you want to be able to find out that you don't have any coverage. So if a parent slips and falls and they sue the homeowner's company could say, sorry, that was because of the daycare. We don't offer any coverage. So now they're going to go after you personally. Some homeowners policies will do endorsements, but they will only do an endorsement if you have like 2 or 3 children. And the liability is minimal, maybe 100,000. They don't include professional, they don't include sexual abuse. So it's really important for you to read your homeowner's policy to make sure that you know what coverages are in there. They can also, if you don't have enough coverage, like I said, they can garnish your wages or put liens on your assets. And whether or not you're innocent, you still have to hire an attorney, and those fees add up. So you might as well get a general liability policy so the insurance company can defend you. If you're a renter and you have a daycare in your apartment, you have to still notify your landlord because your landlord's policy might not allow a daycare in the property. So the same issues are, like I mentioned before, are on the previous slide, are pertinent to you as a tenant. And your landlord might want to be listed on as an additional insured. What that means, in the event of a lawsuit, your policy would then cover him in the event of a claim. And you have to make sure that if there is an additional insured, you let your insurance company know, because there could be an extra fee. Did I lose anybody yet? Everybody still there? Okay, well, that's good. Umbrella coverage. So the umbrella coverage, if you think about it, you open up an umbrella and everything underneath it is covered with the liability. So that would be, you can get an additional 1 million or 2 million. So let's say you have a daycare general liability policy of 1 million, 3 million. You want to get an additional $1 million. That would be the umbrella policy. Most in-home daycares do not get an umbrella policy. Commercial daycares do, because the county is usually required if you have funding. So that's just something, you can get this on your home. You can get this to cover your home and your auto. This is just something that personally might be of interest to you for your own personal protection. Is there 2 questions in the chat, or are those old?
Those are old.
Oh, those are old, okay. Okay. So business personal property, let me just see where I am on this slideshow so I can. So your business personal property is usually not covered under the general liability policy. You would check with your homeowner's carrier to see if there's any type of coverage, because you might have playground equipment, you might have several, your rooms might have all your cubbies and your supplies and your things that you use for the daycare. It might add up to a few $1,000s. Look at your homeowner's policy to see if there's any endorsement that you could add for those coverages, or if it would be covered under your actual general liability policy. Storage units. Some people have their items in the storage unit. So these buggies, these buggies go for a couple $1,000s each. In the summer, you might not have space for them and you want to put them in a storage unit or store them somewhere else. You need to add that onto your homeowner's policy, or check with the storage unit to make sure that they have the coverage should something happen to it. But you need to make sure that wherever your property is, that you have it properly covered.
We have a question in the chat, Marcia. They're asking if they will get a copy of the PowerPoint.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you and
Okay.
then you can, well, you have it.
Yes.
So auto, whether it's commercial or personal, I say to my daycare providers, please do not drive the children unless you have a commercial auto policy designed for the child care, because that's considered livery. You put those children in a vehicle and they're involved in an accident, you have all that potential for lawsuits. The insurance company is not rating you for a daycare or livery. They can write in the policy, deny any coverage. So if you're in a bad accident and 3 children have to be taken to the hospital, you know they're suing somebody. And if it's your fault, your insurance carrier would say, we didn't know that's how you were using the policy or the coverage. It's not stated in the policy that is used for livery. There is no coverage. They're getting really, really strict on this. So I can't stress it enough. And some people say, well, that's the only way I can get the children. Parents can't bring them. I have to go pick them up. I've had daycares that I had one particular daycare that actually they ran over a child and killed the child. And it was a horrible, horrible thing. And that alone is trauma. But they were a commercial daycare and they had the coverage. If that person was in their personal vehicle, there might not have been any coverage. So all your hard work, everything you work so hard to do to build, could be given in a lawsuit. And it could and you could be paying for it for years, along with the emotional distress of that incident happening. So please do not drive any children in your personal vehicle. And this is some of the things that I had mentioned, that it's rated as livery. Premiums for just the liability. We're not talking about the collision and comp. Just the liability started about $1,500 here in Buffalo. You're talking New York City, closer to New York City in the boroughs, it's double that. That's why a lot of the rates are really high, because of the amount of accidents and because of the high potential for lawsuits. What causes your rates to increase or decrease? Local and national catastrophes, things that happen. If it's a nationwide catastrophe, those storms that we had, they're rated as a catastrophe claim. Might not be held against you, but it goes against the company. The companies have to pay out those claims. So that's something that you don't necessarily is out of your control, but that's what affects the rates. So when you see all these big fires, even if it's in a different state, doesn't really matter because the companies are worldwide, so, or countrywide. So if something were to happen in Texas and they have to pay out all those claims, it trickles down across the state. Your credit, like we talked about, and your payment history go into how the rates are calculated. So if if they look at daycare as a whole and see that 75% of the daycares go into cancellation, well, they're going to take that when they go to make up the rates, knowing that there's going to be a lot of touching of the paper. So it's really important for childcare providers as a whole to elevate their business and to make sure that they make their payments on a timely fashion. Also, you might be getting an audit. Sometimes the companies send out audits or they send out an inspector to look at the property. Please comply with them, fill out the paperwork. If you don't understand when something comes to you, reach out to your agent, have them go over with you. If you don't respond, that's a red mark on your account. And then when you need a favor, they're going to say, well, you know, we sent you we sent you an audit. We had an inspector come out. They couldn't get in there. No, we're not bending over to help you when you didn't meet all our requirements. So anything that you get from the insurance company, I always say to my clients, I'd rather you call me a lot and let's get it straightened up right in the beginning than not call me at all. At the end of the day, you are mentally and physically exhausted. You get a sheet of paper, you get mail, and you open it up and you think, oh my God, now what is this? That's the time. The next day, you shoot a text. My clients shoot me a text in the evening. I got this in the mail. I don't understand what it is. I look into it. I get back to them because you're busy during the day. It's really hard for you to take time out to really talk with somebody because you're hands-on with the children. And then at night, you're mentally fried because you've been with the children all day. So it's really important, though, that when you get something from the insurance company, that you do respond and that you do answer their needs or reach out to make sure that you understand what they need so that you can give them everything that they need in order to make sure your policy stays in force. Another thing is following the policies and procedures. Please, especially the guidance on don't leave a baby in a car seat. When they come into the daycare, they should, even if they're sleeping, they shouldn't be sitting in the car seat sleeping. Those are things that the insurance company will look at if there's a claim. Is it negligence? Is this a policy you've been doing? All of a sudden you have a child that's injured. Well, you know, that didn't follow the policies and procedures. The insurance company could say, look, you need to follow these policies. You're not following these policies. That means we have to really see when we go to investigate, you could be held liable. And if you're held liable, depending on what it is, the insurance company can say, well, you didn't meet the criteria that we set out. Our guidelines in order to insure you are following rules and policies and procedures. You're not doing it, we won't defend you. So it's really important. You have policies and procedures from the state. Those are what need to be followed for your insurance carrier. Poor maintenance of a building, that affects rates too. So, you know, the ceilings, the roof is leaking, the ceiling, the water drips down, gets on the ground, somebody slips and falls. The ceiling falls on a child. That's a claim. All of a sudden now you have to be, if you have an employee or you have the daycare provider, if the ceiling collapses or something happens, now you have to shut down. Now the daycare is closed. The children have to find somewhere else to go. You're out of money. Chances are when you're ready to reopen, they're going to have already been placed somewhere else. So now you're starting from scratch. So maintenance of your building, whether you own it or whether you rent, is really important that you keep on it and that you're aware. The stairways, make sure that the handrails are secure. Make sure that there's nothing on the stairways. I usually go to my in-homes. I usually try to stop in once a year and just see it because you know yourself, if you go on vacation from your home and you come back, you notice things that you wouldn't necessarily notice. I go back and I'm like, well, what happened to the ceiling? Who wrote on the ceiling? I never even looked on the ceiling. Then I come home from vacation, there was some mark. Could have been there for 6 months, but I never noticed it. That's why I like to go in, it's fresh eyes. I talk with the provider to make sure that I tell them what I see so that they can fix it. Sometimes it's very simple, especially things on stairs. You have to make sure those stairs are clear. Your daycare policy is not a maintenance policy. It's there for a major loss or a major claim. You need to, like I had just said, keeping things neat and clean and keeping your area surroundings, which as a daycare provider, the state comes in, does inspections. So we kind of work hand in hand. Be vigilant of areas that can cause harm. Does everybody know what a finger guard is? Does everybody have finger guards on their doors? I'm going to show you this. This is a finger guard, a door guard. So it's very, take it out of the paper. You slide it on the door jamb so that the door doesn't close. So if somebody's fingers are in there, it protects them. These are very inexpensive, but I'll tell you what, I had a claim of a daycare. The child cut their tips of their fingers off. I thought it was a pretty inexpensive settlement. It was $40,000, and I thought that was pretty inexpensive. That was, I'm going to say, maybe 8-9 years ago. Now it would probably be $100,000. And that's one of the first things that they said is, why wasn't there any finger guards, door guards on the finger guards on the door? So there you go. That could be a negligent. You could be negligent on that. So it's very important. Poor maintenance. Parents come into your home. I had one that a grandmother slipped and fell on the sidewalk. And that's the one that, so I'm not going to sue, I'm not going to sue. Like I said, a couple months later, she was listening to the news, you know, slip and fall. It's a great way to make some money. So she did put forth the lawsuit. If a child gets injured, some parents think that that's easy money for them. It does go into the trust of the child, so the parent doesn't get the money. But parents think, oh, there's a great way for me to make, you know, especially now, the economy is tough. Parents are hurting, people are hurting. Lawsuits are like going up like wildfire. So please make sure that your area going into your house is clean from ice, so that parents are walking. If they're walking with the child in a car seat and they slip and fall, down goes the parent, down goes the child. If the child falls on the parent can get severely injured. Loss of work, maybe surgery. You can see how fast those things add up. Here's another potential claim. A lot of people have welcome mats outside their door. See the one with the holes? Now imagine if you're dropping off your child and you're going to work and you wear heels. Some people still do wear heels, and their heel can get caught in that. And this is a sample. We did this as a promotion for the Child Care Resource Network in Buffalo. This actually did happen. I was in a business and my arms were full, and I walked out of their business and my heel got caught into that rubber, and I fell. I managed to catch my balance, but I fell into the street. Had a car been coming, I would have been hit. Now that business would have been responsible for all my injuries and everything that happened to me, because they had the mat and my heel got caught in the mat, which caused me to fall. So simple things like that. Here's a question. In a situation where a parent picks up their child and they allow a child to run ahead of them while under their supervision, and they are not watching them, and allows them in the road, etc., and something were to happen, are we liable for this? Well, a lawsuit will be brought forth to you, and your insurance company will then step in and defend you. And that's the importance of having the liability coverage, because they will defend you. They will also look into the records, see what happened. Sometimes people have like the Ring doorbells or something. They'll pull up that video. You might not be liable, you might be innocent, but that lawsuit's still going to come forth and you have to defend yourself. So your insurance company will defend you and they'll prove that it was the parent that was negligent. But in the meantime, you're racking up probably $40,000, $50,000 of attorney fees. Some, it depending on what it is, sometimes the company will do a settlement. Just here's $10,000. We're going to settle this because it'll cost us a lot more in attorney fees to go to court. It's really up to the company discretion. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I see their point. So you will be brought up in a lawsuit, and the company will defend you. You'll probably be proven innocent, but you'll still have the attorney fees. Does that answer your question? I hope. So what do you do if you have a liability claim? First of all, if something were to happen, notify the police right away. That child was hit by a car or something, you call the police and you notify. You have to notify. The very first thing you have to do though, is you have to notify the county, social services. I had one of my daycares, a child was injured. They took the child was rushed to the hospital. She called the parent, rushed to the hospital. Then she called social services. Social services, they should have been the very first phone call. She had to go through she went through a lot of problems. She ended up closing her daycare because of the problems that she had dealing with social services and this incident. So the first thing you have to do is, even if nobody picks up the phone, you need to call social CFS, CPS, Child Family Services. You have to report it, leave it on a message. And then you have record that you made a phone call to them and then move on. Somebody can always, if you're calling the ambulance, somebody can always call the county and let them know what's happening. Notify your agent and your insurance company as soon as possible. They need to know the time, the place, who was involved, the nature of the accident, any witnesses. Make sure you get all their information, who was injured. Only talk to the insurance company. Don't talk to the neighbors, don't talk to the parents. And you'll probably have to sign a statement of the loss within 20 days of putting it into the insurance company. So it's really important that if something were to happen, you notify the state, notify 911, get help as soon as possible, and make sure you notify your insurance carrier. I see some questions in the chat. Okay. All right. Oh, well, thank you, Chris. I'm glad you're getting information out of this. Good to know. How to survive a lawsuit. If anybody has ever had a lawsuit, it is emotionally draining, taxing, and you feel like you've aged 50 years. So the best thing to do is do the preventative work, because emotionally this will just take a toll on you and it will last for a very long time. So make sure you know the manner of the incident, the date of service. Never alter your records. If you alter your record and you mark something down and then you erase it, and that wasn't the time and you erase it, people will say, well, you know what, how do we know you didn't alter anything else? Make another copy and make a correction, but never ever alter your records. Make sure you keep adequate records. Like I said, don't talk to anybody. Do release your own medical records to the insurance carrier or the adjuster as needed. Don't overestimate or underestimate the facts. Just say it as it is. It's really hard. We're very emotional, but you want to make sure that you're clear and precise. Let your staff help you through this. Don't resist. If the insurance companies, like I had said, they felt like they want to make the settlement of $10,000 and have it be gone, and you feel it's wrong that these parents are just looking to get money and you disagree, let the insurance company do what they do best. I understand that you might not agree with it. You can certainly voice your opinion to the insurance company, but ultimately it's their decision because they're representing you. That insurance contract that you sign says, I give them the permission to represent me in the event of a lawsuit. Report incidences as soon as they happen and don't overreact. Here is a sample, which I do, like a lot of insurance companies want to see your abuse policies. I have a sample of an abuse policy that I've given to now I'm going to say your name wrong. Nadej? How do you say it?
Nadesh, we have it. We'll when it's time, we'll email them the PowerPoint and also that as well.
Okay, so this is a sample. Now, you can go in the sample that I think the document that I'm sending, you can put your own, it's a Word document. So you'll see there's yellow, green, and blue. You can take that out and put your name in. Make sure you read all the pages though, because if this is part of your policy, you need to follow this. So don't put something in your handbook that you don't follow, because that could be an adverse reaction. I mean, that could affect you adversely, because then the company or the attorney will say, well, you have this in your handbook and you're not following it. So make sure this is like a cheat sheet of what the insurance companies want, but please make sure you read it and you agree with it. If you don't agree with it, take it out. But these are key points that the insurance company is looking for. I'm also attaching a playground element. So roles and responsibilities of your playground, how frequently you should do inspections, the checklists, your maintenance schedules, employee training. If you have employees, what to do, what are they responsible for? Keep a list. So if you do inspection training in your playground, you have a list and you do a date and a time. But this comes into play too. If somebody were to get injured or somebody were to be in the backyard or something were to happen, you can say, well, I check on this playground was checked at 1 o'clock, this playground was checked at 3 o'clock, and there's nobody in the playground or everything was fine. So if somebody said that they got injured at 3:05, well, you just checked the playground at 3 o'clock and there was nobody there, and you checked the playground at 4 o'clock and nobody was there. So it's really important that you not only document that you inspected, but put the time and what occurred if you saw anything. Make sure you check the hazards. There's no missing or broken parts, no protruding bolts or fixtures on it, no gaps. That's huge. Make sure there's no rust on anything, no splinters. If a child gets a splinter, they can get an infection if it's not treated right away. My son got a splinter off of our dock and it ended up traveling up his leg in a matter of a day. I had to take him to the ER. I didn't even know he had a splinter in his foot. But if they would have been at a daycare center, they would have said, well, how come we didn't know? Now my child is in the ER. There you go. There's a chance for a lawsuit. And make sure that your surfaces under the playground meet code. That's really important. We're right on pace here, 7:24. So we have some upcoming trainings that I'm going to be doing. One is there's another one coming up for commercial daycares, but the other one that's important is workers' comp. If you have employees, who is covered, how it's calculated, what to do to protect yourself. Another one is on New York State disability and paid family leave, how that all works, and cyber liability. So we would do the workers' comp and the disability together. So you would understand what you need to do to make sure that you're covered. Because if you're not covered the right way, you can be fined by the state. I've had some businesses fined up to $50,000 to $70,000 because they did not have the proper insurance. And then cyber liability is huge. Everybody's getting hacked. I just got a fictitious one on a text message from my bank saying, please click on this. Your account was hacked. It wasn't from the bank. It was from somebody else, but people click on it, they get into your accounts. So if you have parents that are depositing money into your account and they hack you, they can also get into their accounts. So that's huge. And finally, what do you look for when you choose a company and an agent? Make sure that the company you're working with is an A-rated company, because you don't want them to close their doors or have a situation when you need them when there's a claim. Make sure they have a good claims history. Make sure there's local representations, that you have somebody to reach out to should you have any questions. If you do stuff online, sometimes it's very hard to get the answers that you need. and make sure that it has the extra coverages that you need. And some companies will even offer public relations management services. And finally, what to look for in an agent when you're dealing with this: somebody that understands your business, answers your needs. They're there to represent you. I always say to my clients, call me. Like I had said, I'd rather you call me a few times and let's get it handled. Make sure that they're accessible and that you're comfortable so that you can call your agent and say, this happened. You see a lot of things on commercials. I'll say, if you see a commercial for something and you wonder, geez, if this happened to me, would I be covered? Shoot me a text. Let me know. My tagline is, I worry so you don't have to. You need to get the peace of mind. That's what your insurance is there for, to give you the peace of mind. You're a business owner. You need to protect yourself as a business owner. You need to educate and empower yourself, and that's through the proper insurance that you have. So 7:26, man, I was really talking a mile a minute. I didn't know if I'd be able to get through it all, but so do we have any questions?
I don't see any questions in the Q&A or in the chat. Excuse me.
Oh, somehow I lost my screen.
There is a question. The question is, are you able to recommend any particular insurances?
Well, it really depends on, well, you look at the coverage. Are you talking about company names? You need to really look, when you reach out to your agent, ask them what companies they are and really go for the coverages. You're looking for the coverages. You want to make sure the general liability is high. Make sure, I'm going to stop my share. Make sure that you have professional, make sure your sexual abuse is there. So that's the most important thing. And make sure that the company is A-rated. Am I able to look over the policies? Yes, I can look over your policies. I can tell you what it is that you're missing. If you have a good policy, if you have a good rate, all I would need from you is you can take a picture of it. You can email me the deck sheet. The deck sheet are those coverages that I showed you in the presentation where they list the limits. Those are the deck coverages, and that's what I would need to look at to see exactly how you're covered.
There's one more question. It says, did you say that they have to have a separate coverage for serial abuse?
For sexual abuse?
I think is it Julie Henry, if you can come on, I don't know if you're able to come on mute or if you can type in the chat. Is it sexual abuse or serial abuse? Excuse me.
Okay. I'm looking at your, okay. Are they in the chat?
She says sexual, so that was a typo.
Sexual abuse.
Yes.
Okay, so you would look at the policy, the coverage, the company should have it in there. It could be, you'd have to ask, if it doesn't say sexual abuse, it could be part of the general liability. So you have to ask, is it part of is it included in the general liability, or is there a separate limit for it? Or you can look to see if it says it's excluded. Sometimes if it's excluded, then I would say find another carrier that would include it.
I don't see any more questions. Is there any other questions?
I'm going to ask a general question. Overall, I think we're going to send out a survey. Is that correct?
Yes, we will.
Because I'd like to see if I spoke too fast, if I answered your questions. We covered a lot of content in this. And like I said, it's 6:30 to 7:30. You're probably fried right now. My email will be provided for you. If you have specific questions, feel free to reach out to me. You'll have my phone number, my email, and I can answer any questions. If there's something that you need more detail on, I'm certainly able to help you. My goal is to make childcare providers educated and empowered. I want them to be a successful business, because without you, parents can't go to work and can't do the job that they need to, which means their employers can't have qualified professionals working for them because they're worried about childcare. Childcare is essential, and I really want you to grow and develop and for it to be a very successful business for yourself?
There's some good responses, Marsha. There's someone that said this was very informational. Thank you. And also in the chat, this was a very educational. In 15 years, I never thought about putting doors covers so the doors doesn't close on fingers. So.
Oh, good. I'm glad. We're going to have a drawing.
Yes, we had the drawing. So we do have, Marsha wanted to do a drawing and you will be receiving a gift in the mail from Marsha. So the two winners are Kayleen and Amy. So if you can email Alyssa and myself your address, and you will give it to Marsha, and you will receive a special gift from her in the mail. Kayleen and Amy are the two winners of the drawing that we did.
Okay, so I really appreciate everybody's time. We try to keep it prompt. I can't tell you how happy I am to be part of this and to give you some information that you can use to grow and develop your business.
And we are very thankful that Marsha was able to help us with this training. And please, there's 3 more that will be coming. One next week, we will be emailing you with the information so you can register again for it for next week and the other additional sessions that Marsha will be doing. Thank you everyone for joining us. If there's anything else or any questions, and if you guys can just put some claps in the chat for Marsha, because I'm sure, and everyone can attest to it, that she did a great job. We really appreciate it. I think there's one more hand raised.
Oh, I see. Chris raised a hand.
Yes.
Do we have a question for the raised hand?
Chris, if you can type, oh, okay.
Oh, thank you, Julie.
Yes, they're giving the remarks. I don't know if Chris have a question.
Chris, do you have a question, or was it just a high five?
I think it was a high five.
Vincent, you'll be hearing from me soon. Did not there? Okay,
I
great.
can post the link here. Hold on.
Okay, I'll post everybody my email.
That's the link, everyone. Hold on, I think I sent it to.
And I'll give you my cell number. And you can text me. Text me your questions, text me whatever it is that you need, and I'll answer your questions.
And we just posted the link. If you go on, that's the ECLC website. On the right-hand side of the website of the link that you registered, you'll see the additional ones that Marsha will be facilitating, and you can click and register for those if you haven't done so already.
Oh, I gotta send it. There it is. I didn't hit send.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate it. And thank you once again, Marsha. We really appreciate it. So much jewels and so much information.
Great, thank you. Could you just stay on with everybody?
Okay.
Exits. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great
Thank you,
evening.
everyone.